Meeting is hereby called to order. If you would join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, if you can, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, welcome to SFA Ferry's Board of Directors meeting. The monthly meeting is being conducted in person. Let me get closer to the mic. The meeting is being conducted in person and by video conference and is being recorded. To reduce background noise, all video conference participants will be joining the meeting in listen-only mode and muted during the discussion. SFA Ferry welcomes comments from the public. A public comment period will be set aside after each discussion period and will be accepted in person and by video conference. Video conference participants wishing to speak are requested to email your name and item number you'd like to comment on to boardofdirectors@sfbayferry.com. If you are unable to send an email, you will be given an opportunity to speak on the item after those who have signed up. So we're going to have a oh, yeah, we need to have the roll call, so let's do that.
Thank you. Chair Wonderman.
Thank you. Yes.
Vice
Here.
Chair Moyer.
Yes, here.
And Director Henneberry.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum of three, so we keep it tight. And thank you, Vice Chair Moore, for reminding me to have the roll called. Board Chair report, reading through the materials, and I'm sure we'll discuss later. It's great to see the performance of the system ever improving, numbers going up. This is pretty unique in the public transportation business, as I think most of you know. But to be well over our pre-pandemic ridership when other agencies are struggling to come anywhere close to that, I think is indicative of the service that we're providing, the leadership of the organization. When you look at the reliability numbers, very few cancellations, the public acceptance in general of what we're doing, it's very, very encouraging. I happened to have a meeting with Governor Newsom last week, and so it wasn't on this subject, but I happened to have a meeting with Governor Newsom last week, so you can imagine I made sure he's aware. I had written him about it and previously, but talked about this with him and explained, how well SF Bay Ferry was doing. And he said, "Yeah, I heard somewhere about that." Well, yeah, because I wrote to you about it last week. He also, of course, mentioned, well, I was on that board at its inception. And I said, "Yeah, yes, you were. You paved the way to this greatness, Governor, so you should be very proud." He was on the original board when it was formed, and he was mayor of San Francisco at that time. So he's well aware. He's ridden the vessels. He's shows up for us, and I think he really does care about what we're doing, and he's excited about our electrification and the steps that we're taking to provide leadership in this space. So know that Governor Newsom is aware of us and on on our side. In many of these meetings over the last few years, I've brought up the notion of building ships in the Bay Area. The minutes report that both Vice Chair Moyer and myself traveled to Washington State to visit our vessels our electric vessels under construction. I think both of us were excited to be with Seamus Murphy. We're excited to lay the keel, although Murphy did a lot better job than Wonderman on the weld. But no one that's in history now. But going to Washington for the purpose of visiting vessels that are ultimately to be used in the Bay Area never really made sense to me, and still doesn't. And so I've spoken about this perhaps ad nauseum over the years about the importance of restoring shipbuilding to the Bay Area. The good news is that the momentum for this is just increasing all the time, and I appreciate the support of the team on this. and weighing in, and the Working Waterfront Coalition, who we supported with a major grant last time we met in order to be able to be prepared and have our teams prepared for the electrification when the vessels arrive. And a number of things are happening in my company, California Forever, but at Mare Island, in Benicia, in Vallejo, in other parts of the Bay Area, which have had a history in shipbuilding. And I believe that the next era of vessels that that are constructed as a cause of our finance will be constructed in the Bay Area. I think there's that much movement in that direction. Maybe one of the biggest things was the joining of Cal Maritime, the CSU campus, but with Cal Poly. So now Cal Poly is in charge of Cal Maritime, and its chancellor or president, Jeffrey Armstrong, couldn't be more gung-ho about this and is involved heavily in this, and that there's a lot of credibility what goes with that, because ultimately it's about training the next generation of people who actually can work in shipbuilding. We don't have that talent ready, but Working Waterfront Coalition is working on it. They've graduated 5 classes. There need to be more specific trades to shipbuilding that occur in the future. We're just on the doorstep of this, but we're definitely crossing the threshold, I think, on it. And it's very exciting, and the potential economic boost this could give to the region is really phenomenal when you look at the numbers. And we need to do it in order to diversify the Bay Area economy. You've seen that a lot of the high-tech companies are consistently laying off people. The job loss in the Bay Area in the first quarter of 2026 is rather startling. And it's not coming, although we've had some job losses in Solano County from the closure of Budweiser and upcoming from Valero and some other blue-collar trade-oriented jobs there, but mostly it's coming from high-tech jobs that are being skimmed, and AI is a functional big part of this, and there's other competitive factors in it. So, a big solution to this, which we talk about, is diversification of the economy, and we are that diversification, and we can lead this. And we have leverage. We're actually building vessels. So we are causing vessels to be built, but we are transferring funds to another state to do it. And I appreciate the state of Washington and going and visiting those shipyards and seeing what they're doing. And I don't think it's about taking work away from them, because this is an American movement. If any of you watched 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago and saw the state of shipbuilding in America, it is scary. How our country has moved away from shipbuilding. 1,000 ships built in China last year, 3 in America, major ships. That is not acceptable. So we're relying on Korea and Japan to produce our vessels. So very, very far away, and then potentially, this is not good for national security, and it's not good for our economy. So this is happening. The federal administration, Trump administration, is moving on this. It's a bipartisan issue. There's the SHIPS Act that's in play. Congressman John Garamendi is the co-author of that with other Democrat and Republican co-authors. It's one of the things in Washington everybody agrees we need to be doing. The Navy is firmly behind this, Department of Defense. So there's a congruity of thought on this in the country that we need to get going. And a lot of money has been set aside for this and will be set aside in the next budget to do this. A lot of it will be naval oriented, but a lot of it will be in support, a lot of the infrastructure then supports commercial development. And if we're able to build a shipyard at California Forever, it's going to be a combination, I think, of service to naval vessels, but also to commercial vessels. And with our leadership in electrification, it puts us in a great position to be able to be not just a leader that produces our own boats, but that could produce vessels that are going to be demanded in other regions in the country and perhaps in the world. So I ask everybody to kind of double down on this and be serious about it, because it is serious. And there's a lot of meetings being held. The office of the Governor's Office of Business and Development, we held a meeting last week in Fairfield in Solano County with, I think, virtually every state agency and the county agencies, all coordinated by the state. So the state is really into this, and of course, we're discussing this with the governor, and he, completely is. He totally gets this opportunity, and I think that whoever's the next governor is going to get this opportunity, because it's a real one. So that is my pitch for today. Just wanted to provide that update. It's extremely exciting, and we're talking about potentially not hundreds but thousands of jobs that people can be trained for. The next generation of kids who in the Bay Area can't afford the home that they could possibly, they're going to leave. A lot of these young people are going to leave. My daughter told me last week, she and her husband, who do okay, are headed for Atlanta, leaving. Some of you may have this same experience. Why are you leaving? It's too expensive here. What I could get there is but for a lot of people, it's simply lack of opportunity. There just isn't the right job for people in the future, but we can do something about that. Regions have succeeded in the past of identifying opportunities and going hard at chasing those opportunities. With that, I turn over to my trustee Vice Chair, Monique Moyer.
Great, thank you, Chair Winderman. And I'll be quick because I know we have our timed hearing a few minutes ago. I just have two quick items. I want to thank and commend the staff and the team who put together the great article in the San Francisco Standard talking about the benefits of commuting by ferry. And for those of us who are on the road, I've been fortunate to be able to take Caltrain quite a bit, which is packed, I might say. So we have a little bit of competition there, but I'm glad to see. Thank you so much for getting that article out there and into the public domain, and really looking forward to the report later in the agenda on the March numbers. Also want to note that last week we lost Rod Diridon, who was the most passionate person I've ever met about public transit and just being a community person in general. I don't know how many of you know him. He got his career on the City Council of Saratoga, quickly jumped to the County Board of Supervisors in Santa Clara, where I think he spent 5 or 6 terms, and then just after that has worked on pretty much anything and everything that touched transportation, and has a very prominent station named after him in San Jose, where I spent a good 35 minutes last night, and it's quite lovely. But in any event, I just am hoping that we can, in his honor, conclude our meeting today, because he almost single-handedly has really changed the course of public transit in the Bay Area, and was just absolutely tireless. And I can't think of a higher honor than Rod Diridon and honoring him with our meeting. So thank you.
Thanks, Vice Chair Moyer. Director Hannaberry.
Well, I think Member Moyer and Chair Wonderman covered just about everything. But I would like to add that it was a pleasure to be part of 2 record-breaking weekends as far as ridership is concerned. Had the family out there on the bay, and it was a really good experience. As far as the shipbuilding goes, I was at the Maritime Trades meeting the other day. That's a coalition of labor unions involved in shipbuilding and sailing, and we are willing and ready to go. So let's get that going. Thank you.
Great, thank you. In terms of the agenda, we do have a public hearing coming, and the agenda says timed item 1 p.m. So that means that after 1 p.m. Correct, Stephen? Do we have to do it now?
No, it just means not before 1 p.m.
Right, and it is not before 1 p.m. So we're just going to take it in order because the related item comes on the heels of that, so it kind of makes most sense. So I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wonderman. Thanks for those remarks. Thank you, Director Moyer, for the idea to adjourn in Mr. Diridon's honor. I share your affinity for Rod. He was just a tremendous advocate. After spending a good portion of my career at Caltrain, I understand the impact that he had over his career. So great idea to do that. Thank you for the comments on shipbuilding, Director Wonderman, Chair Wonderman. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, a shipyard The size that's being proposed there employs about 26,000 people a day, just a huge amount of people. And all of those people will need a way to get to that shipyard on a daily basis. So it's on the waterfront. There's no BART station nearby. So we are excited about maybe the potential for some ferry service to that shipyard in the future. We've had a good, as you mentioned, Director Henneberry, good couple weekends of ridership. Also great media attention, including the piece in the Standard, but a lot of earned media as well. So we're continuing to build just great awareness about the organization and the progress that we're making. Also, a lot of that has to do with the customer satisfaction, rider satisfaction that we continue to enjoy. So much of that is because of our crews. And so our first item in the Executive Director's report is just an opportunity for us to recognize crews for some of the specific work that they're doing on our system. And Thomas Hall is going to walk us through some of the latest.
Great. Thanks, Seamus. Thomas Hall, Director of Operations and Customer Experience. On a daily basis, our vessel crews deal with any number of difficult situations. We want to spend a few minutes highlighting 3 crews who in recent months went above and beyond in their duties and possibly saved lives as a result. The first crew, led by veteran Captain Chris San Miguel, rescued stranded boaters just outside the entrance to Mare Island Strait. A small group was on a powerboat that began taking on water. This was during Super Bowl week, and the local maritime apparatus was stretched pretty thin. The nearest Coast Guard asset available for rescue was 2 hours out near Rio Vista. Captain San Miguel and his deck crew, which included Gloria Freeman, Mark Mercurev, and Carl Carr Johnson, sprung into action, pulling 3 people and 1 Chihuahua onto the ferry, safely getting them to Vallejo. The following weekend, we had 2 medical incidents on board ferries. In the first, a passenger had a cardiac event early during a southbound Vallejo trip. The experienced captain, Jim Peoples, worked with dispatch to divert the ferry, which was headed to San Francisco, over to the Richmond terminal, which was the nearest safe landing spot, while crew members Koju, Lloyd Castillo, and Nyaradza Mutumu helped the passenger and his wife. Dispatch had emergency medical services meet the ferry at Richmond, and EMTs rushed on board to reach the passenger and treat him en route to a local hospital. The crew communicated well with passengers on what was happening and eventually got them safely to the city. Several passengers emailed us after this to commend the crew for their decisive help and clear communication. The other medical incident involved an apparent overdose on board an Oakland Alameda ferry the next day. A passenger was found unconscious and, based on context and feedback from other passengers nearby, was believed to be suffering from an overdose. The crew retrieved Narcan from the first aid kit in the pilot house, and deckhand Ruben Sevillano administered 3 doses, bringing the passenger back to consciousness. The captain, Dan Fickett, worked with dispatch to have emergency medical services meet the ferry at its destination, and the passenger received cares from EMTs at that point. Deckhands Ryan Fong and Bayina Jordan assisted with that rescue. We want to commend these 12 crew members, along with our dispatch team in Alameda, and thank them for their extraordinary life-saving efforts on San Francisco Bay Ferry. Blue and Gold Fleet has its own employee recognition program, and management has told me that these crew members are being recognized through their efforts as well. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Those are heartwarming stories to hear, and really a tribute to these incredible people and to Blue and Gold and the entire system, dispatch, for having that kind of coordination. It's really remarkable and great. Thank you. And Mike?
I was on that run where the overdose took place, and it was handled with total professionalism. It's very impressive.
Good, yeah. Thank you, Tom, and thanks to the crews and to Blue and Gold for keeping them trained for these type of incidents. Never expect to have to use that training, but it's there when they need it. So we're glad that they perform so well. The board approved our participation in the Green Marine program last year, and this is our first year of participating in the program, first full year. We have a assessment of that first year, and Arthi is going to walk us through the update to the Green Marine program. It's a part of our sustainability efforts, which is a part of our larger business plan.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and Chair Wonderman and directors. So Arti Krubanan with Planning, San Francisco Bay Ferry. As part of the board authorized joining the Green Marine Program last year. And since then, every alternate years, we have a certification process. So this is an environmental certification program wherein the agency is showing progress every year in the different performance indicators relating to environmental progress. So as part of this program, last year we got certified, and this year, as part of maintaining the certification, we are showing achieving higher level in one of the performance indicators. So this year, we have submitted, it's a self-evaluation process this year, and we have achieved a higher level in waste management. So each year, we will be showing progress and aligning ourselves with what the board adopted in terms of sustainability policy objectives. Happy to answer any questions.
That's great news. So if I understood you correctly, we went from one level of sustainability or waste diversion for project management to a higher standard?
Right. There are about 7 to 8 performance indicators, including greenhouse gas emissions. Waste management is one of those. And as of last year, we had been on level 1, which is monitoring regulations. And this year, we are showing improvement in waste management. And we would be doing that in phased approach. Every year, we will be achieving the next level in alignment with the REEF program and other efforts of the agency.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthi. We wanted to put fuel costs on the agenda so we can have a discussion about this. Obviously, it's something that is on everybody's mind, and we do account for some variability in fuel prices throughout the year when we do our annual budgets, but not this kind of variability. So we now officially have Lauren Gradia in her role as CFO, and she's going to give us an update on fuel costs, what it means for our budget, and what we're thinking about moving forward.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. Lauren Gradia, and I'm happy to be here at my first official meeting as CFO. We've prepared a few slides to highlight the current market spikes in fuel prices and how they're impacting San Francisco Bay Ferry, and what type of mitigation options could be considered if fuel prices remain elevated. Fuel expenditures are about 20% of the operations budget, or about $16 million, and that means that price fluctuations have a significant financial impact. For example, a 10% increase is about an additional $1.6 million annually. With the price increases in the recent from the recent conflict in Iran and the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, Brent crude oil spiked 78%. The new ceasefire and commitment to open the strait are signs that the fuel price increases are easing, but nothing in the region is stable. Brent crude oil has dropped to $95 a barrel today, but it increased 46% in the last 6 months. Our price for what we purchased, which is R99 fuel, is following that global crude oil market pricing. So hopefully I can move the slides. All right. So this first slide, or I guess the first thing that staff investigated was really how do these fuel price increases affect SF Bay Ferry's current fiscal year budget. And so the blue line on this slide shows the diesel price, or the R99 price that we have paid over the current fiscal year. And the red line shows the running average of those prices that's been just under that $3.50 per gallon. Since fuel is volatile and in accordance with recommended best practices, the current fiscal year budget used an average price of $4.20, and that is shown by the gray line on the plot. So you can see that while the recent fuel prices at the right of the graph are quite a bit above that, the running average is still well below our budget price. And so with this analysis, we are confident that it's unlikely that we'll exceed the annual budget for fuel for this fiscal year. So for this fiscal year, the most recent price that we had was $5.77 per gallon. That was at the time of the slides, actually, and that subsequently has increased up to $5.95, although we're hearing it's dropped about 70 cents today. So based on some sensitivity analysis, we found that we would need to be over $6.40 for all of April, May, and June for us to exceed this year's budget. So then looking ahead to next fiscal year, this is kind of a preview of what we're working on for the budget that will come to your board next month. We are looking at potentially using a $5 average price per gallon for the budget of next year, which has a significant financial impact to the district. And so on an annual basis, that would be $3.1 million over the current fiscal year budget, or on a monthly basis, that would be $260,000 per month. And so we've started to look at mitigation options, and this chart, and Tom's going to talk to some of them, but it also shows the estimated potential monthly savings. And so if you can keep in mind that we are talking about a $260,000 per month, this shows what those types of mitigations could potentially do.
Great, thanks, Lauren. So as fuel prices increased substantially, we began talking with Blue and Gold Fleet and internally with our fleet team and the rest of the team on any fuel reduction modifications that we can make that would have minimal customer impacts. And so we certainly looked at reducing speeds on some midday Vallejo trips, Vallejo being the route that burns the most fuel. It's a long haul on a fast boat, often with a lot of people on it. And so it does burn substantially more fuel than our other routes. And so we looked at midday trips that typically have fewer riders or riders who aren't in their normal commute, and so they don't mind being on the ferry a little bit longer if it travels a little slower. We're not seeing, the trips that would be minimally impactful to passengers. We're not seeing big savings from slowing down those trips to cap out at 30 knots, which would turn a 60-minute transit time to about 70 minutes. We're seeing less than $5,000 per month in savings from doing that after an analysis. The two other slightly bigger options would involve a midday vessel layover in Vallejo. So right now we have the 3 morning crews essentially head back from San Francisco to Vallejo, 3 boats within 1 hour, which is overkill during the 11 and 12 o'clock hours in terms of the demand for people going from San Francisco to Vallejo at that time. So we explored what would it mean to leave one of those boats here and bring that crew over on an early afternoon boat to pick up the boat in time for the PM commute. We found that it would have minimal passenger impacts if we did that and substituted the southbound trip that boat would normally do in the afternoon, which is actually a Richmond trip. We found that we're averaging about 12 passengers on that 11:30 a.m. northbound trip from San Francisco. And those passengers could very easily take a trip slightly earlier or slightly later. That would save us about $30,000 per month if we made up the other lost trip. We would actually be net neutral in trips overall because we would be adding 2 trips. If we canceled that trip and didn't replace that crew's afternoon trip, which is easier to do in between labor bid cycles because it doesn't involve changing a different crew's schedule, something we could do tomorrow if we needed to, for instance. That would save a little bit more money, but it would have a slightly bigger passenger impact due to losing the 2:05 p.m. Richmond trip to San Francisco, which averages about 25 passengers during the off season. We would expect that number to go up slightly during the summer for people coming into the city to enjoy an afternoon. And it does expand a gap in Richmond afternoon service a little bit more. So that one would have potentially higher savings, but with some minor passenger impacts. So those were the service operations. We wrote off doing like a major schedule change as a part of this exercise, given the uncertainty about how long the prices will be elevated. These were things we could turn around within the next month or 2 based on the situation and board feedback. I'll turn it back over to Lauren to talk about the fuel surcharge concept.
Thanks. So the bottom half of the table shows a couple scenarios we looked at for a fuel surcharge. This is something that Vallejo looked at before that service came to SF Bay Ferry. We looked at a 50-cent per trip average fare surcharge and $1, and that does significantly move the needle in terms of the potential monthly savings. It does have other challenges like confusion with the current fare proposal, and then also wanting to minimize ridership impacts. So some of the next steps are listed here on this slide. Certainly we'd like to hear feedback from your board. There's additional staff work that can be done in terms of evaluating the mitigation options, thinking about different triggers, like if fuel prices stay high for a specific length of time, we would start to consider things, and how much of a meaningful difference they make. We certainly are going to continue to monitor prices, and then also we've been consulting with other partner agencies and experts, and the results of this will be incorporated into the draft budget and then the final budget. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. You mentioned that Vallejo, before they were part of us, had they looked at this as an option or actually done it, or what was the experience?
My understanding is that their board approved a fuel surcharge, but by the time they got through the process, that the fuel crisis at that time had ended, and so that was never implemented.
And have we ever asked our passengers about the sort of sensitivity of this subject? I mean, based on the letters we received about this nominal fare increase, one could imagine what they might say. However, people are also paying this at the gas pump, so there's an alternative cost to this kind of thing. Has there been any history or any discussion of it?
No, we've never asked them directly about surcharge to account for rapid spikes in fuel prices. But we know, like you said, that one of the main reasons that we've seen the dramatic increase in ridership on the ferry system is because of how affordable we've made the system with our pandemic recovery program, and then extending that fare program to be permanent. So I think you're right that we would get a very negative reaction to this proposal if we asked our riders.
I mean, clearly fuel is one of the big drivers of our cost, right? It's probably number 2 part of our cost, and it's largely out of our control. I mean, there's some of the things that we could do. They all bear some risk, like hedging and things like that. But largely this is a function of international affairs that's causing this, and it's completely out of our control. So, I think a lot of people would understand that, given that it's out of our control, the options would be either do this or reduce service. Those would be sort of, because there isn't an unending amount of money available to operate the system, and it has to have a budget, and it does. And the budget is based on availability of funds versus desire for service and what works. If we had more money, we'd run more boats. We would expand service, but we don't. So we have the level of service that we're able to provide given the amount of resources we have available to the organization. So I don't think we should write off the notion of doing something like this, because I'd hate to see us reduce service. But I think for a lot of people, although they complain about the cost, having less reliable, greater gaps in service, which is the other outcome of this ultimately, might be a bigger impact to us than this. So, not that this is good or that we want to do it. Monique?
Well, I'll be the contrarian to you then. Thank you first and foremost for thinking about this, as I think everybody is, probably globally. For me, there's some great starting points here, but really not enough information to give you any kind of valid feedback, quite candidly. I would really want to see, what are the true trade-offs between being more creative about the service, as we have historically been, versus using some of our reserves, versus having a strike price as you proposed, versus having what, if any, hedging contract would be even purchasable. I have my doubts about what that would even be worth at this moment in time, but I don't know. So I like the concept of all of the things that you've put out there, but I feel like there's a lot more depth that I would want to go into before we made such a dramatic decision. I have a visceral negative reaction to charging a surcharge because I think everybody's doing that, and that goes really against all that we've just achieved the last 3 years and into the great success that you started the meeting with, Director Murphy. So I'd have to really see what those trade-offs are and how we could bundle them together to some sort of output. So I don't think I'm being helpful to you at all, but that's my reaction.
Well, I'm going to be even less helpful. So I think in life you get what you pay for, and we are delivering a pretty good service to the public, I believe. And, we really have no control over fuel prices. It's a global issue. So we're going to have to take it as it comes. And maybe if prices have to go up a little bit, that might be worth the cost. At your service to be helpful at any time.
No, look, this is it's a serious problem that we face, and when you look at Lauren, your estimate for net, the only thing that's saving us is the fact that it's happening late in the fiscal year. If this was happening earlier in the fiscal year, we would be having a serious discussion about diminution in service right now. That's what we would do, and but it's late in the year, so we think, and we had parts of the year where we were paying less than what we anticipated, so we're benefiting from that as the offset. Now you're talking about $5 as a guesstimate for next year's budget for a gallon of R99, but you have no idea. It could be $8 a gallon, right? Given the order of things, or it could be $3.50. We don't know, but there is this problem in the world. It's a very serious one, and I think I agree with Vice Chair Moyer's point that we don't have enough information to make a decision at this point, and I don't think we're being asked to. But I do think we need to do some sensitivity analysis about what happens at different levels of fuel cost, and maybe start making the public aware of that this is a discussion that's going on, and it's affecting, this is going to affect people in so many different ways, and it's going to affect what they pay for things in the supermarket or goods that they purchase, or this is a price that matters to so much of things that we buy and so many things that we do. So I'd like to kind of, as we go forward, really look at it and have a serious look at that and see what happens if it's not $5 next year, but it's $6.50 or $7, or it could be more. And what would we do in that circumstance? What would that mean? And what would we want to do about it? And we would have that tough guns or butter discussion about what do we want to do. We want to, go back on our commitment to keep the cost down for the riders, which has had, great effects. And I think it shows the character of the agency that we did that, and it's had great effect. But, we've been able to maintain a level of service that I think is functional. And, there may be more we could do with service that, maintains a great level of efficiency without having to, having to do it. And we should look at those kinds of options. But this is serious. This price is, once it goes up, it may be hard to get it back down. We just don't really know. And it is out of our control. So, thanks.
Great, thank you. So the feedback is actually helpful. I think we will take a look at the longer term options so that we can be prepared to share what we find with the board if we still need to, if things get worse, and we won't take anything off the table at this point. And we will just make sure we keep looking into opportunities to address this moving forward, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that the things that are out of our control will work out in our favor. in the meantime. I will also add that the FAIR program item, which is coming up on the agenda, gives us more flexibility, a little bit, but still more flexibility to make FAIR changes in response to Bay Area, which in effect are global inflationary trends. And so that is another lever that that's relevant for this discussion that we would have available to pull to help address this situation in some incremental way moving forward. Okay, great. Directors, you have reports on the financial statements and legislative reports in your packet. I do want to ask Gabe Chan to give us an update on ridership, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions or comments that you have on any of the reports in the Executive Director's report.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. Gabriel Chan, Transportation Planner here at SF Bay Ferry. Enclosed in your packet, you have ridership data summaries, graphs, and charts for the past 2 months. So that's February and March. And I'm happy to report that the agency saw some record-breaking numbers in February and March. We carried over 225,000 passengers in February and then over 300,000 in March. And compared to our 2019 numbers, we did 116% and 126% of pre-pandemic ridership, respectively, for those 2 months. Some big drivers of those big numbers in February, if you remember, we had some of the F1 events happening in the city. That was a big draw for folks, especially along the marina, the northern waterfront. And then in March, we had some really good weather, as well as the start of events down in Mission Bay at Chase Center, as well as Oracle Park. And then if you look at our regional partners at BART and Caltrain, they're registering about 51% of pre-pandemic ridership at BART and 64% of pre-pandemic ridership at Caltrain. And then moving forward, typically our summer months are going to be the big ridership months. And so as we go into April, May, June, July, we're closely monitoring how the ridership pans out. We have some pretty aggressive projections for the rest of the year, but I think we're going to hit those targets as we have so far this year. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I'll just add to Gabe's report that some of the pains of high ridership that we were experiencing before the pandemic are starting to show up. Vessel max outs, limited bike space on board our vessels, parking lots filling up. So we're hearing from our riders and more about some of these issues. We're working on ways to address these. We have, as you know, an access study program looking at each terminal to try and figure out how to make sure that people who want to access the ferry have every opportunity to do that. But these are issues that are going to start to be more prominent as ridership increases. Good problem to have, but it brings its own set of challenges. Thanks, Gabe.
Well, I'll just requote Chief Brody as I have before. I think we're going to need a bigger boat. So,
That's right.
but this is a good problem to have, and but we could start to see some impact and rider satisfaction if they're feeling like it's too crowded or they're actually missing trips. How many times has a passenger actually not been able to get on a vessel during this period?
Great question. So in our reliability report, we do report max outs. So the most recent data that we have in your board packet is from February when we had 10 max outs. Preview, that number will be higher in March and likely through the summer. We typically see this, especially on Giants Day games. I haven't looked at the data closely from yesterday, but we would expect to see a couple of those trips max out. We do everything we can, obviously, to mitigate that.
But you define max out as 80% of capacity, is that correct?
98%.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because
So basically,
I read
when we
that
get
wrong.
down to there's 3 or 4 spots left, depending on the size of the vessel. That's what we calculate as max out. So yeah, we do everything we can to mitigate, including assigning the right vessel for the trip, communicating, especially on those big weekends and the Giants Day games or any sort of midweek event. We communicate, arrive early to make sure you get a seat. We have added that direct service for Vallejo to the ballpark on the weekday day games, which is putting a bit of a strain on our fleet. Obviously, we have to put one more vessel, one more crew into operation on those days. which is a big consideration, but we've made it work so far. That does take 300 plus passengers out of the regular Vallejo ferry line at downtown San Francisco. There's still sometimes more people than we can handle on a single trip. So it's good to have lots of service to be able to take those people home.
Yeah, I will say, because I've been spending a lot of time in the area, the Vallejo service is really important in that part of our region. It gets talked about all the time. So whereas other places, I think people maybe, I shouldn't say that because we have 3 terminals in Alameda, which I think are very heavily dependent on. But, it comes up in conversation a lot just off the cuff about, how important that service is. Obviously, our biggest one.
That's right.
Great. Thank you, Chair Wonderman. That concludes the Executive Director's report.
Well, not quite, because I did want to ask a question about the legislative reports. So I was disappointed to read that Senator Wiener decided not to run with a fix-it bill to get ferries into SB 79, which were kind of left in the wrong tier last year, and he said he was going to try to fix it. And I know legislation is complicated and so forth, and I know SB 79 is not a universally loved thing in California. It's a controversial issue, but could you just explain a little more about what happened, and is there any other opportunity, or did it really matter in the first place, or those kind of things?
Sure. Yeah. And Lauren Gallardi will help me if there's more depth needed, but we were disappointed as well when the ferry service was taken out, sort of collateral damage in order to get the bill passed last session. We did work productively with Senator Wiener's staff to try and get the ferry terminals added back in to give the same preferential land use treatment to areas in and around the ferry terminals. When we started getting into the weeds about the actual impact to our specific terminals that would be realized if we had the benefits of SB 79, it really came down to just a handful of parcels in the Oakland, Jack London Square area around that terminal. All of our other terminals are either in counties that are not covered by the legislation because they don't have enough transit stations to begin with, or they're in areas that are already covered because there's overlapping transit services, bus services, rail services, where the benefits exist even though ferry terminals aren't included. So as the legislation became more controversial, I think the desire to move forward with the clarifying legislation became less desirable, and the benefits specifically to us were very narrow. So there are other ways for us to achieve those benefits in the Oakland terminal area, specifically working with the city of Oakland to make sure that those parcels are zoned appropriate for the transit service that exists in the area, not just ours, but Capitol Corridor and other services, so that we maximize the number of units and residential development that can happen in those areas. And that's something that we are looking forward to collaborating with other stakeholders on who are interested in the same thing.
And on the federal report, there's mention that we're still awaiting, I hope we're still awaiting the Department of Transportation, I think it is, or maybe it's EPA, to release our grants for our terminal, funds toward our terminal and vessels or electrification. What is the, where are we with that?
It's a great question. It's not the EPA grant. That grant is secure, thankfully, because later on in the agenda, we'll be asking for your approval of some funds to help match that grant and move forward with the projects, downtown electrification, namely, that are included in that EPA grant. But the Federal Transit Administration grants, 2 of them, and we have others that are secure and finalized, certified. We're drawing down on those. There are 2 that did not become finalized in time, before a review process was initiated at FTA to determine consistency with the administration's priorities. Those two grants are two of about 80 transit-related grants, not just ferry grants, but bus grants, rail grants, all of them related to clean energy proposals. And it is very unclear how long this review process will take to conclude, or whether it will ever be concluded. And we don't have many options to force their hand in this area. We're continuing to work from an advocacy standpoint because we're not alone. There are others around the country that are benefiting from our program through jobs and other benefits, and so they're helping us. We have a bipartisan coalition working on this, but it's not clear if it will matter enough to the administration to have them release these grants. And so we're working on some contingency planning to figure out how we can still move forward with these projects despite the complication with these two grants.
Yeah. I know at least you and I, maybe Lauren, are headed to Washington, D.C. with the Bay Area Council trip. And I know they're asking for, what are our priorities and so forth. So those are legislative, which this isn't that. But is that an opportunity for us to explain to somebody who's willing to listen why these are especially important?
It's the top priority that we've shared for activity on that trip. Even though it's not legislative, the legislators that approved the funding for those programs with the idea that they would fund projects like ours want to see that happen. And so we'll be encouraging them to weigh in with the decision makers at DOT to help make that happen.
Great. Thank you. Those are my questions. Any others from my colleagues? Okay, we can go forward. Thank you. So let's, with that, thank you for the report, and thanks to the team for the presentations. Let's go to the consent calendar. Are there any items on the calendar to anyone on the board wishes to remove? That comes after the consent. Yeah. Hearing none, can I get a motion on the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can you call a roll, please?
Okay, nobody has signed up for public comment. Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
and Director Henneberry.
Yes.
The consent calendar carries.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7 is approve a public hearing on proposed fiscal year 2024-28 fare program amendment. The purpose of this item is to conduct a formal public hearing and receive comments on the proposed fiscal year FY 2024-28 fare program amendment before the board considers taking formal action. Speakers will be asked to clearly state their name and city of residence for the record and to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Once all public comments are received, the hearing will be closed. The public hearing is now open to receive comments on the fare program, on the proposed fare program amendment. We will begin with speakers who've signed up in advance, followed by any additional speakers. When your name is called, please come forward or unmute yourself if participating remotely. Melanie, has anyone signed up to speak?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Is anyone here in the audience or remotely wish to comment, make a comment on the public hearing?
We're
if anybody would like
online.
to. Okay.
Hello, board members. My name is Priyanka. I'm joined here with my colleague Grace. We utilize the public ferry system every single day to transit to and from work. I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to speak with you today. As people who use this as our daily commute route, we're very grateful for a system like this to exist and for part of our city funding to be allocated to use this. Although I know this meeting is specifically created to discuss fares regarding our transit, I did also want to potentially bring up ferry scheduling as an issue for those of us who commute. Recently, I believe about 2.5 weeks ago, They removed a few of our ferry times that we regularly utilize to get to our office, some within like a criticality. It's around a 9 a.m. ferry schedule. And I was just wondering what led that decision, and also if there's potential for us to create suggestions in that realm for our ferry schedule. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We would appreciate any advice, any suggestions you have. Please send your notes into the board of directors, and we're happy to and the staff, and we're happy to review those. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the fare schedule amendment? For the record, we did receive a number of written comments, and those will be entered into the record. The public hearing is now officially closed. I do appreciate your comment and the written comments that we received. Anyone else wishing to comment before I close it off? Just in case? Okay. So the hearing is closed, and appreciate the comments. We're going to move on to item number 8, which is adopting the fiscal year 2024 fare program amendment. This is an action item.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. Mike Doherty, Director of Planning. I'm going to be brief here. I'm going to turn it over to Arthi Grubanand. But just a refresher for folks in the audience. This item came before the board last March, whereas the board authorized us to go out for public, to initiate our public outreach process. And Arthi is going to give you the details of that process. Just want to note, and Chair Wonderman mentioned it, we did receive written comments. The 2 we received before the mail out were included in the packet, and we've received 2 subsequently that were provided to the board. So I believe the resolution mentions that we received 2 written comments. That should be 2 comments before the mail out. Just want to make a point of clarification on that. And then just also want to note some of the direction the board gave us last month coming into this month was to provide some additional background and context as to how we got to the recommended changes that we got to. So we hope the information that we present today is responsive to that. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Arthi Grubanand to go through our presentation, and we'll both be available afterwards for questions and comments.
Thanks, Mike. Once again, Chair Wonderman and Directors, Arthi Grubanand. So this is an action item requesting the board to adopt the amendment to the fare program, which runs from FY24 to 28. So as Mike mentioned, we have a few slides to present in terms of giving a context and background to the proposal of route-specific adjustments that we are making. So with that, so just quickly, we'll be looking at 6 parts, giving a background of the current fare program, what the regional context and how our fares compare against our peers, what the proposed changes entail, and then moving on to what's the fiscal impact with these proposed changes that were that was submitted in March to the board, and then followed by public outreach, and finally the next steps pending board's adoption. Sorry. So let me start with a quick reminder of our current fare program. It's at predictable small step increases from fiscal year 2024 to 28. The goals aligned with the fare policy that was adopted, which is keeping it comparable to the regional transit options and also supporting the financial sustainability. So since the adoption of the program in 2023, what we have noticed is that other transit operators are adjusting their fares, in some cases aggressively, and also with the regional programs such as the Clipper 2, specifically transfer discount program, which reduces the effective cost of comparable trips. And also there is a higher than anticipated inflation that's happening. So keeping all of this in context, and with and also keeping the goals same in terms of maintaining alignment with the region and long-term financial sustainability, we are proposing the amendment. So here it gives a deeper look into the different regional transit options that we are comparing. And one quick takeaway from this is a very high level is that everyone is moving, but not in the same manner. For example, BART is taking an approach of inflation-based increase, which is ranging from 5 to 6%. And AC Transit is doing small step increases. And Muni is resuming increases after COVID delays. All the other transit operators, they vary. But as I mentioned, it's varying over time at different levels. So a couple of takeaways from this is that there's no single pattern in terms of the fare increases across the region. And comparing ferry fares against the comparable regional transit options like BART, ours is lower than those comparables. So in just before I get to this one, the context with respect to the previous slide was that it doesn't follow a single pattern, but we also are noticing that around the region the fares are around the changes are happening by corridor, and this is important in the sense that riders are making choices based on what's happening across the systems. So here we are doing a deeper dive, looking at each corridor. So basically, for a rider, what comparable transit options are available by route. So for example, on Oakland, Harbor Bay, and Seaplane, what we are noticing is that it's slightly lower than the than BART or AC Transit. For Vallejo, we are competitive, but with transfer discount, we are already at a higher level. For South San Francisco service, we noticed that we are already at a higher level compared to the other transit options available. And finally, with Richmond, this is where the gap has widened significantly. For example, if we look at FY23, we are about 60 cents of a difference compared to BART, and that has grown to over $1 in 2026. Thank you. Here, this slide shows the for regular services what we are proposing in the next 2 fiscal years. For Oakland, Alameda, Harbor Bay, and Seaplane, the increase is slightly higher than what's in the current plan in order to align ourselves with the equivalent transit options. For Vallejo, given that we are already at a higher level and considering that transit discount program is in existence, the adjustment is reduced from 3% of the current plan to 1.5%, and also to protect affordability. For South San Francisco service, we are, given that the service is undergoing a service restructuring study, one-year trial period, we are maintaining the same 3% increase and make any future adjustments based on the outcomes of the study. For Richmond, this is the one where it's a higher increase, given that the fact that the gap is significantly high compared to the comparables, and also given that the ridership recovery is stronger on this service, we are proposing a 6% increase. So that's for FY27 proposal. And then for FY28, the approach is to keep it flexible and within the board-approved limit. Depending on what we observe on FY27, what happens in the next year, the adjustment, we would respond to that in fiscal year 28. We would still bring it back to the board to get approval and make necessary changes. So the second component within the proposal is the short hop service. So currently it's $1.10, and as you can see, the comparables in the service areas that we have is closer to an average of $2, more than over $2. So given that the regional local transit trip is $2.85, and along with riders now will be eligible for the transit discount program if they are taking more than one transit mode, and that discount goes up to $2.85. We are making a structural alignment to match against the regional framework. The final component of the proposal is the special event service. The policy was to achieve full cost recovery on this one, and pre-pandemic it was below the cost recovery, so we had adjusted the fares. And now what we're observing is that, the current performance shows that we're achieving full cost recovery. So the recommendation is to maintain that predictability and continue the course and monitor to see if there are any changes to be made eventually. Finally, for rider experience, rather than having the fare increase happen at fiscal year, it's aligned with when the season actually starts, when the game season actually starts. So this slide shows, brings everything together, all the three components: regular service, short hops, and special events. So as we can see, it shows with the current plan, if we continue, what the fares look like, and with the proposal, what it looks like next fiscal year. What we are doing is aligning where we have fallen behind the other regional transit operators, and then increasing so as to, again, keep it aligned within the region, and making structural alignment on short hops with to keep it comparable to the regional framework. So with all that, we also wanted to provide a revenue impact assessment. So basically, the intent here is not to drive up the revenue, but it's more about structural alignment with the region and keeping structural alignment with the region and with a small fiscal upside of about $34,000. So last month we came to the board to provide the proposal and get authorized for getting public input, and the public notice was started from March 6th until date. And it was the different strategies involved: a virtual open house event that was conducted last month, onboard signage, and outreach to community partners. The next slide shows, so in total, we had received a handful of comments that's provided to the board. We did not see any any concerns or substantive concerns, so we did not propose. The staff did not propose changes to what was presented in March. However, the comments that were submitted had some themes that we have been monitoring, such as service reliability for special events, or affordability for longer commute riders like Vallejo riders, and ease of use in terms of customer experience. So lastly, pending adoption, the next steps would be coordinating with the partners and finally implementing the program on July 1st for regular services and short hops, and then for special events whenever the Giants and Warriors games start. With that, I'll wrap up the presentation and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Arti. It sounds like overall, without any disrespect to the letters that we received, there were 4 of them. It doesn't seem like there's an overwhelming clamor pushing back against this program. Is that fair, based on the outreach that was done?
Yes, I think the submissions were issues that we are already monitoring in terms of service reliability, which we always try to adjust as part of the schedule twice every year. And then in terms of with the Clipper 2 being implemented, we are promoting the support of using Clipper 2 for ease of use.
I'm trying to, since I'm not on the ground the way the team was, trying to gauge the sensitivity that's sort of out there around fares, and anytime we're increasing, an increase is an increase, and generally speaking, people don't like it. But I guess what I'm asking is, as we're going through these, the open houses and the various reaching out that we did, it's sounding to me like what you're saying is that the public isn't really pushing back against this. Is that a fair statement, or is it not fair?
That's correct.
Colleagues? Questions, thoughts?
So I thought that the fare increases were pretty modest overall, but one that kind of stands out a little bit is the Alameda short hop increase going from 110 to 285. What was the thinking behind that?
I think one was to, so I'll start with short hops is about, at the largest, about 0.3% of our total annual ridership. But that being said, we have always kept, as part of the pandemic recovery program, in order to get more ridership, we had kept the fares the same in terms of 3% increase. Now that we have gotten to the stage where the ridership recovery is almost 90+%, and given that with the Clipper 2 transfer discount program that has come into existence since this year, we thought as part of the amendment, it would be a good structural change to make to align with the transit operators that are around our service areas.
Yeah, and I can just add to that. We talk a lot about alignment with the other transit operators, and it's not just because that's our goal. It's the goal of the region, really, eventually. This board was the first board to adopt 6 years ago the seamless transit principles, right? And one of those principles was, let's have a more predictable, easy to use fare structure around the region so that people don't have to worry about understanding the Soul Trans rules versus the BART rules versus the SF Bay Ferry rules, because we don't really operate as one system in the Bay Area, and that's one of the reasons why, that's one of the major criticisms about transit in the Bay Area. That led to a fare integration study by MTC, and one of the recommendations in that study is to have a zone-based fare system that's independent of mode. So whether you're taking BART or SF Bay Ferry from Richmond, the fare will be the same because you're coming from the same zone into the same ending zone. And that's something that we embraced in our pandemic recovery program, is to make sure that we did our best, even though it's complicated and requires more math than it should, something we can do our best to align with that principle early, be early adopters of that common fare structure around the region. And it's worked out for us because people are choosing the ferry over other modes when we align the fares. And one place where we're missing that is in the short hop, where our fare is very, very low at $1, and a typical bus fare is around $2.85. We'll be adding future short hops to the system, and those short hops from Treasure Island to San Francisco, for example, will be aligned with the bus fare from Treasure Island to San Francisco. That's what we're modeling right now to determine the appropriate operating subsidy. So this just ensures a more consistent, simplified, short hop fare structure that is the same as the other modes operating in that same corridor. Much simpler regionally and consistent with regional fare priorities.
And this is 0.2% of the ridership, you said, I think?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. I guess if someone was concerned about that fare increase, they could always walk down the dock to the Woodstock, take that across, which is free.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Artie, thanks for the presentation. This was give us a little more insight than we saw last month. Can you go back to that slide that compared the fares against other operators? Great, thank you. And so as I look at these, I know that BART and Golden Gate and ourselves charge for, or are associated with parking facilities that that have charges, is what I'm trying to say. So the overall cost to the riders probably varies based on that, right?
That's right.
And so back to what you were saying, Director Murphy, how does the region look at the total cost to a commuter for say, or any passenger?
I believe the studies only focus on the fare for the transit operation because it's unclear whether riders will be walking to the transit station, or whether they'll be driving, or whether they'll be taking a ride share. There are a bunch of different ways you can get to the transit service that all carry different costs. So they haven't taken all of those different variable costs into account. They've just focused, as we are, on the cost of the fare itself.
Yeah, but we also focus on that last mile, right? So I think the basket of affordability is pretty critical, and I think the basket of affordability for fiscal year 2027 is going to become more critical again, as we saw earlier in this decade. So I'm concerned about that. So walk me through a little bit more on the thinking for Vallejo, because I know you're backing off of what would have been the ability to raise to 3%. If I remember how the current fare assessment is written, it's a cap of 3%. It's not an automatic 3%. Am I saying that correctly?
Before it was a automatic 3%.
Yes.
It was automatic. Okay. And so what prevents you from staying within the range of the other operators and not raising it at all?
In Vallejo, well, go ahead, Arthi.
So Vallejo is where when we not only looked against the BART fares, but we also took into account how it compares against transfer discount when it is applied. And we are noticing that the fares are already at a higher level, which is why, and given that it's a much more price-sensitive area, that's why instead of a 3% increase, we adjusted to 1.5.
Right, but that will still put us higher than everyone else. And then if you go all the way to your max of 6% in fiscal year 2028, you're going to be at 1050.
Thanks. I appreciate the question. I think maybe we can elaborate on our approach a bit. We definitely, even raising by 1.5% for Vallejo, we're still out of alignment.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get to. It's it's the one that doesn't match all the others.
Yeah. And so where there are significant gaps that we recognized, we didn't necessarily attempt to close all those in this first year of changes, but we wanted to minimize the magnitude of that gap going forward so that we can kind of continue over time to achieve the alignment without large changes in either direction, because we're kind of balancing maintaining the affordability of the services while also protecting our revenue sources. And so, Vallejo is an example where we probably would have had to actually reduce the fare to get the alignment we want, or we could have gone to 0, or we could have gone to the 1.5% here. So we chose to kind of move in the direction that we want to get to, knowing that we're not going to fully get there in the first year. Richmond was an example in the opposite direction. Even though we're raising by 6% in the proposal here, that doesn't get us towards actual alignment with the BART fare. It's still higher, but it's kind of moving us more in the direction. And so that was just the approach that we had in what we brought forward. It was to, not necessarily achieve the alignment that we would like to see immediately, but kind of move in that direction.
Okay, so thank you, and I appreciate that. So we've talked so far today about alignment with the operators, about being part of a regional player. The one factor of the 3 that we haven't talked about is inflation. So we talked about that on an earlier item when we talked about fuel costs, but we haven't really talked about inflation, which is a basket of a number of things, which would also include labor. So how does that factor into this proposal for all the fares?
The inflation. We made a best guess in 2013 that it was going to average out to 3% per year. And that was kind of the approach we took with the program, a flat rate. What we're seeing with some of the other operators that have implemented annual changes over the past 3 years, they're setting those changes based on the actuals that they see in that year. And so, I think actual inflation's been higher. We're also out of alignment with other operators that adjust based on actual inflation. So I think there's overlap there. We're actually, by indexing to what BART's doing, for example, we're also capturing the former factor of actual inflation being higher than what we projected it would be in 2023.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I think that's important to share with the public. I knew the answer, but I wanted you to say it out loud. Thank you.
Thanks. Other comments or questions from my colleagues? It's a pretty important action. So we've held the public hearing, or we should still take a public comment on the item, I would think, right? Yes? Yes. So has anyone signed up to speak on item number 8?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Anyone who's listening or here wish to do so? Go ahead, please. Come on up.
Hello, thank you, Isabel, member of the public and fan of the Ferries. I guess my thought off of seeing and hearing all of this is kind of where car riders compare to this. I realize that like transit systems are easy to compare to each other, but the largest group of people that, or opportunity of new riders are people that are regularly driving cars. And with the gas prices rising, there's a real opportunity to compare for transit services to become competitive to car drivers in their regular commutes. And one of the reasons why I love the ferries is because I think it's best positioned to convince people who are normally in their cars and would never take a lot of these other services to consider becoming transit riders. And so I guess my comment is that I think the ferry service is really in a good position to encourage car riders to get out of their cars, and the cost there, especially as things get more expensive for driving, there's an opportunity. Complete thought. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's money. And it's also the congestion, the experience people have. And, there's an increasing number of folks coming back to transit, I think, from the, in the last year. We're seeing it. There's more people who are required to be back at work. And, then there's the cost and, a number of other factors. But, I think we're all in the collective business of trying our best to improve the mode share, which isn't great. Most people, like massive, over 90% of the trips in the Bay Area, I think, are still single occupant vehicle trips. So we still have a long way to go here. But thank you. Appreciate your comment and your support. Other members of the public wish to speak on item number 8? Hearing none, we'll close that, and if one of my colleagues would wish to make a motion, we'll accept it. Brave soul.
Make a motion to approve the fare structure increase.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Would you call the roll, please, Melanie?
Chair Wonderman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer.
Yes.
And Director Hannaberry.
Yes.
The item passes.
Thanks. And congratulations, thanks, Artie, and it was a good presentation, and I think, it did a good job of explaining the rationale around something that's a fairly complicated matter when you're increasing fares at for different amounts for different places. We didn't take the simple approach, which we took before. So the fact that we in the room and those listening to this now understand this, I would not assume that the public does. And so once these fares get implemented is when the real public hearing begins. So I would urge you to prepare for that. Thank you. Let's go to item number 9, authorize agreement with San Francisco Public Utilities Commission relative to downtown San Francisco terminal electric service.
Yes, Chair Wendeman, Vice Chair Moyer, Director Hannaberry, Gary Griggs, Chief Capital Program Officer. I'd like to talk to you about the downtown San Francisco electrification project, which I've spoken to the board about on a number of occasions. But in particular, we want to talk today about the opportunity to take the first step in securing the power that we need for the downtown terminal. And it's a big step that we've been working on for quite a long time. As you know, the downtown terminal, downtown San Francisco terminal, is really the hub of our whole system. So everything feeds out of there and back into it. We're having great success in general of securing power around the system, as shown here on the graphic, especially for phase 1 and phase 2. So as we see those colored lines showing up, we're starting to make some good progress in looking forward to the electric service that we're going to be providing. But as we know, the utilities are stretched to the limit, so we're having challenges to get this service that we require. And we're doing this in a phased approach, as you can see. So we're close to getting phase one, which will be Treasure Island and Mission Bay service with the 150 passenger vessels. And then we're getting to the East Bay with the 400 passenger vessels. We have the vessels are on order and in production. So now we need to make sure that we have charging capabilities at our terminals in order to be able to charge the vessels as part of the operating system. So we've succeeded in finding an approach in particular to secure that downtown power. And I really want to acknowledge Tom Marks, who's the development executive from SFPUC, and he's here with us today, and his team, who have been working very closely with Chad Mason and our team in putting this plan together that I want to review with you now. For some background, skipped ahead. As background, we need 10 megawatts of power at the downtown terminal. And the original plan was that the SFPUC would be building a 90 megawatt substation in the Embarcadero area that we would use to draw that service from. The certainty of that 90 megawatt substation is in question. There's a lot of work to be done on it. And their challenge, as everybody is where's that 90 megawatts going to come from? As a result of that, we've been looking at other options. And we have now come up with an approach that would be a dedicated service, 10 megawatt service for SF Bay Ferry to provide that electric service to the downtown terminal. We've been working indirectly with PG&E. All of our work, again, and thanks to Tom and his team, has been through SFPUC in our dealings with PG&E, and this is a standard approach that the PUC and PG&E use in developing services like this. And as we've been developing this, PG&E has now set a deadline that they want us to commit to securing this service by April 17th of 2026. We were a bit surprised by this because we have continuing things that we'd like to work together with the PUC to sort out with PG&E. But quite frankly, what's happening is they have such a large demand from other potential customers for this 10 megawatts that if we don't make that commitment, they're going to pass it on to somebody else. So that's why we're coming to you today to move forward with that commitment. Just a kind of a reminder of what we're talking about overall for the downtown terminal in terms of the electrification. It's a fairly complex arrangement. This shows the red square near the bottom shows where the PG&E current substation is, located at Fremont and Folsom. We need to take that primary service from PG&E, again with the assistance of the SFPUC, down to that reddish triangle, which is Seawall Lot 328. And then we take it from there on down to the terminal. We use two terms. One is the front of meter, which is that portion in red, and the back of meter going from Seawall Lot 328 on down. And basically, this is somewhat like our homes, where the utility will bring the service into our front yard, and then there'll be a meter there, and then we have responsibility to take it from there. In this case, we have a rather large front yard, okay, because we have quite a long reach from that meter position at that red triangle to take it down to our terminal. So today, we're just addressing the first step in this process. We'll be coming to you with other things, in particular in regard to the front of meter work. And we'll be coming to the board in the future to deal with other aspects of the overall electrification program. So the front of meter work, and again, this is only specific to PG&E's portion of that work. And basically what happens is PG&E has to upgrade their substation, their Embarcadero substation, there at Fremont and Folsom, and they're putting in some equipment, new bus sections, new circuit breakers, some conduit and cabling. And then they're also providing facilities along that red line over to Seawall Lot 328 in terms of electrical switches and pole boxes and meters. The cost of this is currently estimated by PG&E, and this is their preliminary estimate, so it is subject to change. But
Could I interrupt you for just a second? Could you go back one?
yeah,
So along that line, when it talks about, putting in switches and meters and so forth, is this, the power that's coming out of there is greater than the power we're going to demand, that 10 megawatts, right? So they're basically serving this area with additional, I guess there's additional demand along that line, and we're sort of the end game, or maybe not, but it looks like we're kind of the end game of that. Is that, can you explain it?
no, this is actually going to be totally dedicated to us. So this particular line is dedicated to us because PG&E could only come up with the 10 megawatts that we needed out of that substation. It's not clear how much additional capacity they may have, but
So there's not going to be different businesses and institutions along that line pulling from that. It's going from the substation to us, period.
that's correct.
And we're paying the freight for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's really a totally dedicated system to SF Bay Ferry. In the future, when the PUC puts their new substation in at Seawall Lot 328 in the distant future, they're saying that'd be well beyond 2035, then they'll be serving other customers out of there. So the cost estimate for the substation modifications, they've estimated at $5 million for those items that I discussed before. And then they have the work along the alignment, another $580,000, and then the revenue meters of $4,000. So that's a total cost, estimated cost by PG&E of $5,584,000. Now, in order to secure the service, we have to provide a 20% engineering advance by April the 17th. And that comes up to the $1,116,800 that PG&E is basically demanding that we come forward with that if we want to secure the service. So the required actions to carry this forward, first of all, is to confirm that 10 megawatts is available from the Embarcadero substation. That has been accomplished. There's been a system impact study and a facility study, again, thanks to Tom Marks and the SFPUC team working with us that has secured that. And they will have an agreement with the PG&E as well in undertaking that service. Their wholesale distribution service agreement will address that. And then we need to negotiate our own electric service agreement with SFPUC so that we can then meet those commitments and make those payments to PG&E. So we'll be negotiating forward and with your authorization and negotiate the electric service agreement with PUC, and then making the engineering advance payment on April 17th. And then PG&E will begin the design of their portion of the project at that time.
Okay, I have to. So I would say we wouldn't be approving negotiations with the PUC because we've been negotiating with the PUC, because I've been party to that on the electric rate. Mm-hmm. So, once we make this commitment, and I understand, I won't use the expression "the gun is at our head," so don't put it in the minutes. But that's what is being said here. Then assuming the PUC thinks differently than we do about the rate schedule, we have really little to say for it because we've written a check for over $1 million to begin this engineering process. So is there explain to me the negotiating position that we have, and why is it at this point we don't have an agreement with the SFPUC on the rate structure for this? Because it's not like it's a new subject.
Yeah, I think our counsel would like to respond to that.
Sure. I mean, I don't know that I have a satisfactory answer to you, but there have been discussions and, as you indicate, negotiations going on and good faith discussions on a whole number of issues. And then what changed things and why we're here is the discovery of this April 17th deadline to reserve the power, or else PG&E has announced that it's going to give it to someone else. And so we're faced with a position of needing your authority to pay that $1 million. We're not going to pay that $1 million without some form of an agreement, but we're still in the process of working through what that agreement will look like. And so we're asking your authority to authorize executive director to enter into that agreement, where that agreement will be cabined around this payment of the advanced engineering and the work needed at the substation. There seems to be acknowledgement that if things for some unknown reason go south, it's a deposit that will be returned, less whatever has been spent out of it as part of the engineering. And we're, every day trying to protect SF Bay Ferry's interests in the formulation of that agreement. And it is, as Gary mentioned, the first step in a series of complex agreements regarding the construction and ultimate maintenance and ownership of this system going all the way to the ferry terminals. Each step of the way of which I think will come back to you. But we find ourselves needing your authority to take this first step by April 17th. So I don't know if that answers that. That's the best answer I think that we have.
I'm not saying anything everyone here doesn't realize, but there's the cost of the overall improvements that we're making to electrify the system, which is the vessels and the support systems for it that are new, and all of the work that's gone into getting to this point. And then there's the electricity that we're going to have to buy to support this, which is an input, and maybe that'll work out in our favor, given fuel prices. But it takes fuel to make electricity, depending upon how you make it, and so everybody's. The cost of this will probably be borne out one way or the other. But then there's this capital cost of just getting the electricity to the place where we need it. So that's, $5 million plus, $5.5 million bucks is a serious amount of money. And, I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. I don't know that we have a heck of a lot of good option. That's what you're telling us, is that we don't. But we're the stewards of this organization, and we do owe the public, due consideration, because ultimately this is coming out of their wallet, whether it's federal money or state money or, cap and trade money or what they pay at the fare box. It's a lot of money for this, and it would be better if we had more time to really consider the implications of it. But what we're being told is, you don't have another meeting to think about this. You gotta act now. It's like some of those commercials. You can get this car at a great price, but you gotta buy it today. Well, we know those commercials aren't true, right? They actually will sell cars next month, but they might not. And I don't completely understand why PG&E has discretion on this. They're a public utility. They have an overseer, the Public Utilities Commission. I haven't had a chance to speak to them about it. I know that there are executives who've served on my board in my previous job, but it's a little disconcerting to me to get this information this way and find out that this board's being held to make a decision like this with such alacrity. I get it. This is the world we're in. I know this isn't unique because I hear it all over the place. There's not enough electricity to do the things people, companies, businesses, institutions want to do. And so there's competitiveness around this. And maybe we're lucky that PG&E has said, those ferry people are really good people and we really want to prioritize their need, and we will, but they have to go at this. So, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to PG&E. They have a hard job. So anyway, those are my comments.
Yeah, and I really have to recognize SFPUC again. We have no direct dealings ourselves with PG&E. This is a fairly standard process that's taken on projects like this. Tom Marks has requested delays and extensions in this deadline, was able to get us another 60 days So we really appreciate that. But I think it comes down to supply and demand. PG&E's got so many people lined up to take this 10 megawatts that they're saying if we don't make a commitment, and I look at it as more as a security deposit, because we're still going to have time to evaluate this as we go forward. And we do have an off-ramp. If we decide we don't want to go in this direction, then we will recoup whatever costs have not been expended in this 1.1 million. So the following actions then that we need is if we get your approval today, is to negotiate the electric service agreement. Steve Miller has already had a look at that. We're setting up discussions with PUC to get that negotiated. And then the next step will be PG&E will then complete their portion of the design. And I should emphasize, Chair Wonderman, you mentioned this about the cost of that front of meter. There is more costs associated with it, work that we have to do ourselves in conjunction with SFPUC. So our estimated cost of that total front of meter is about $10 million. So there's another $4+ million that has to be done by us. And that's the trenching and work going down to Seawall Lot 328. And then what we wanted to do, because of the uncertainty of their cost estimates, is we didn't want to ask you to do make a commitment to the full amount of this 5.5 million plus, but rather to defer the second advance payment, which is due before the start of construction, because to make sure what that number will be after they do their design, to make a decision if we should proceed with it or not. And then if we do decide to proceed with it, we would then make the remaining advance payment in advance of start of construction, which would be about $4.5 million. So with that, the recommendation was to give the executive director authority to proceed with the negotiations, execution of the contract, and make that engineering advance payment. So
okay, by nature of interrupting you, I think I've asked my questions and my thoughts have been passed on. So I would ask my colleagues if you have questions or comments.
So I wasn't on the board at the time, but there was a decision made somewhere to go to electric boats. And had I been on the board, I would have voted in favor of that. But it doesn't do you any good to go to electric boats if you don't have a way to power them. So, we're dealing this month with SFPUC and PG&E, and those are going to be the same parties next month and the month after that. So at some point, we're going to have to bite the bullet, so I think we should do it now. I would be in favor of moving this proposal.
We just got a motion, I think, to move the item.
Yeah, I'd put that in the form of a
Yeah,
motion.
you did.
Second.
And we have a second. And okay. Are there members of the public who have signed up to make comment or ask questions on item number 9?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Anyone who's here or listening wish to comment on item number 9? Okay, I'll close this. I'll just to say I appreciate you, Gary and the team and the work that's gone into this, and the PUC, SFPUC, which I think does is trying really hard to do the right thing in terms of what for power, and PG&E, which has a tough job, I think, and is doing a lot of good things, but. For us, I totally agree with what Mike said, is that we're going to need the power. We're way beyond the point of, getting to rethink this one, right? So here we are. And I think in the long run, this is going to serve us well, and it'll have been money well spent down the road at some point when we can demonstrate the United States' first battery electric passenger ferry service, and we'll be very proud of that. And I just want to make sure whatever it is we're doing, we're always at least thinking about the public and their contribution to this, their wallets, because every dollar that goes into this is a dollar that could have gone into something else, that's important to people. So with that, I will ask Melanie to please. We have a motion and second.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
and Director Henneberry.
Yes.
The item passes.
Okay, thank you very much for the work on this. Item 10, SF Bay Ferry Classification and Compensation Study Reports.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. I will take this one. We are bringing to you a classification and compensation study that has been in the works for a while. We've paused this at one point in time when we conducted a reorganization of the agency with help from the American Public Transportation Association and a peer review process that allowed us to thoughtfully add the resources to the agency, staff resources and organizational capacity to be able to move forward with our capital program and also maintaining a best-in-class ferry operation. We finally wrapped up our classification and compensation study and want to bring to you the results of that. As an information item, this will be included in the budget for next year, so none of these changes in the ranges and the compensation ranges for the various positions at the agency take effect now. They would take effect with the budget when that is approved in a couple of months. We went about this, it is two studies. We engaged our HR consultant, CPS, to help us complete this study. We've involved the staff every step of the way. The classification study, first of all, is to make sure that the job descriptions line up with appropriate classifications, titles, and an overall structure that makes sense. We wanted to make sure that the classification study leaves room in that structure for advancement throughout the agency and growth for what is a growing organization. The compensation study wants to make sure that those various positions are aligned with the labor market in terms of our peer agencies, comparable jobs around the region. Is the salary range for those positions aligned with the compensation from other comparable agencies? We also want to make sure that this is geared towards employee retention. We want to make sure that this organization is compensating our employees in a way that allows us to retain them and recruit them as needed. This is the process for the classification study. We did complete, every employee here completed a very detailed questionnaire that got into detail about their jobs, what is required, what the duties are, what the responsibilities are, what they do on a day-to-day basis, the various percentages of work that are included in that. Interviews with the consultant took place, and then CPS took that information, analyzed it, gave us a recommended set of classification, titles, and structure. We then took that, and senior staff at the organization revised that and had a lot of back and forth with the consultant to come up with something that was ultimately presented to the staff here at SF Bay Ferry and is being presented to you today. This is hard to read, but this is every employee at the agency, every position at the agency, and there are 8 of these positions that had a title change recommended to more closely align with the responsibilities that they have in their position and also closely align with the comparable positions at other agencies. The labor market selection criteria so that we could choose appropriate comparable positions to evaluate our own positions against included everything that you might expect it to include, the size of agencies, and we chose a variety of sizes because we know that we're recruiting and retaining employees who are also in the same labor market as agencies of various sizes. Cost of living and geographic proximity, the competing organizations, as I mentioned, and then obviously the industries that we're involved in. We included not just transit industries, but also maritime-specific organizations. And these are the 8 agencies that we use to measure our positions against, identify comparable positions at these agencies, and then measure our positions here against. You can see Port of Oakland and Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District, which of course operates ferry service, along with a number of transit and transit adjacent organizations. The results initially were a little bit surprising. It showed that most of our positions were significantly below the base salary competitiveness, but that is without benefits. And when we included the benefits that we offer at San Francisco Bay Ferry, which are very good benefits, retirement, health and welfare, paid leave, and other compensation, the adjustments brought us more closely into alignment with the overall labor market. Still some significantly below and slightly below, but more at market and more slightly above and significantly above than we had before benefits were included. What we then sought to do is to not bring everything to market or slightly above, but we wanted to get everything in 10%, within 10% of the market. And I should clarify that when we say we're making changes, it's to the ranges, not to the actual salaries. So nobody's salary changes as a result of this study. Nobody's salary in terms of actual compensation will change when the board takes action to approve this. As recommended by staff as a part of the budget, but the ranges will change to make sure that we're more closely in alignment with the overall market. And so we want to make sure that those ranges are within 10%. We created a schedule with different pay grades that create some separation between employee levels and managers that make more sense than the existing system today. Most positions saw an increase to their top step since we were significantly below, for the most part, the labor market. So even just to get within 10% required some change in the top step. 3 positions had their top steps reduced, but again, that's not their salary being reduced. It's just the top step in their range being changed. So this is just for your information today, and we would love to hear comments and answer questions on any of the work that's been done and the recommendations here. The staff has been presented with this, and we've had some good, positive conversations with the staff about these changes, and again, they'll be included in the budget for your consideration moving forward.
Good. Well, first, thank you. I read the work, and it's very impressive, and glad we got back into it. And I think as an organization, and and to the employees themselves, people have a right to understand. What is it I'm doing? How does that compare to what I'm getting paid for? What I'm supposed to be doing? What's my opportunity to be doing something more? These are things that some organizations do better at than others when it comes to being able to deliver that. And it doesn't deliver itself. You really do have to, it's from time to time, dig deep and really kind of look at it holistically. There's a tendency to be iterative about this. Somebody says, I'm not getting paid the right thing, and let's look and sort of do a seat of the pants look at that particular position, and it's much better to do it this way. I note the ranges are pretty wide. Maybe that's standard how wide they are, but they seem wide. Have we analyzed where within these ranges for these positions where these kind of benchmark?
Where actual salaries are within the range?
Pick any one of them, but there's a 30%, 25, 30% swing on the from the top of the range to the bottom of the range. So where do we sit within? Are we pushing up against the ceiling of these ranges, or are we down toward the bottom, or are we in the middle, or how does it shape up?
I would say we're near in the middle. When we hire somebody, we propose something that makes sense based on their experience, based on their prior compensation, and sometimes that's at the bottom of the range, and sometimes it's at the top, and a lot of times it's in the middle. And I think we have a good diversity of of that within our current staff. I should also mention that Debbie Gutman from CPS is here. Her team worked on the salary study. She worked with us to develop this, and if you have any detailed questions, she would probably be best to answer those.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to hear from you and just kind of give us, kind of qualify the work that you did and, what you found in this study. How does this organization, you're doing this for a lot of folks, how does this compare to other organizations and so forth?
So I'll clarify. I am their direct consultant for the San Francisco Bay Ferry. So I am more of an HR generalist than I am a classification and compensation expert. And so the team of classification.
This does not leave you off the hook from answering the question.
I know.
That, right?
So the team at CPS HR Consulting that specializes in classification and compensation actually did the study for us. But I would say, so the ranges that they have proposed are very standard. You try and make it as standard as possible for the amount, I think it's 30%. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. And then the 5% in between each of the levels. So you have a very standardized ranges. And then we have some gaps, as you can see, there's positions that, areas in the range that are not filled with a position, gives their opportunity for some growth, maybe adding a senior level in certain areas if you have, people at the agency that are ready to move to that next level. And if they're ready for it at the agency and need it, that expertise, so.
I will say, had we done this work a number of years ago when I joined the board, I would have been able to read the thing better, not just because my eyes are failing, but because we had a lot less positions, so we could have reserved a lot more room for each line. So the staff has grown. We approved growing it, but does having a larger staff give the people on it more potential, more flexibility to move from job to job?
In theory, yes. But I think definitely when you're a growing agency, opportunities present themselves as needed. So I think it was the right thing to do to pause the study while we updated the org chart and recruited for those new positions, and then restart it after that. Because it wouldn't have made any sense to do it before that restructuring. Because
an objective that you mentioned in the report was to give employees sort of more opportunity to see, that when you have very, very few positions, there's little room to move.
Yes.
But sometimes you have more positions, but when you need someone, there's a need for specialization, and the hire tends to come from outside. And I'd like to see the folks who are here, have as much opportunity as possible to move up within the ranks of the organization. I will say, in my previous job at the Bay Area Council, we did a shoddy job of that. And I think people were frustrated that there was little room to move, especially as people got a little more senior. So I hope that as a result of doing this, that at least we're thinking about that in a serious way, so that people can see this as more of a career opportunity.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we've been paying attention to, that you'll see some of those new pay grades don't have any titles or positions next to them. And so those are pay grades that can be utilized for promotional opportunities as needed as people grow in their career and deserve to be recognized for that with more responsibility and more compensation.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Questions, comments from my colleagues? I mean, you oversee, Monique, you oversaw a large organization, and Mike, this is what you do for a living, so I expect you to comment.
Well, thank you. I thought the report was really very comprehensive and frankly very helpful. The only question I really had was what were some of the blanks for, and now I understand that they're saving positions or saving abilities to be adding promotions or whatnot. So thank you. I appreciate that. In terms of the range, Chair Wunderman, I'm very accustomed to seeing the ranges in that magnitude, and I like the prescriptive manner of having the 5% ability to move within the range. That makes a lot of sense to me, and keeps an equitable process when people are placed, let's say, in number 5 versus number 11, but have sort of an equivalent work or experience history. They can be in a particular range that is equivalent. And then also in terms of the title changes, that made a lot of sense to me too. Those are the ones I'm accustomed to seeing, so that will make a lot more sense to me when I see titles coming forward, what they mean. So it all resonated very well for me. I'll be interested to see how this folds into the budget, coming back full circle to the conversation we had earlier. I'll be quite candid. I'm very concerned about the next fiscal year, let alone, like, we're fortunate that we are on a June 30 fiscal year, but that does not absolve the pain for the calendar year that we're in. I'm quite concerned about where we're headed for the rest of this calendar year and beyond. So I'd be looking to see what magic everyone in the room can make with the budget and being able to achieve all of the incredible work plan that we have in front of us. And I was really a little bit disheartened, frankly, to see that we did have so many of our incredibly hard working and talented staff not at market. So I'm sorry for that. Thank you for getting this done, and thank you all for being here and giving us your all. So I really appreciate that. So with that, I'll look forward to seeing what comes back in May that balances everything. But the report made a lot of sense to me.
Great.
Thank you.
What she said. So, I mean, the whole reason for class and comp studies is to set an objective standard for wages and benefits. So this accomplishes that, and unless somebody is running around with their hair on fire upstairs, I think this is a good basis on which to proceed. And to echo your comments, thank you for all your hard work. It's well deserved.
Excellent. And between you and I, nobody's got hair on fire. So we've got a majority there, but not quite a quorum. So Melanie, has anyone signed up to comment on this item from the public?
No one has signed up to speak.
Anyone wish to comment on item number 10? So this was an informational item, so appreciate the work that's gone in, and for the staff who are here or not, I'm really, I think it's really important, and it's important for the board to, to have confidence that there is a, thoughtfulness and a real deep consideration of how we're administering the organization, and that it's a predictor of its performance in the future. And I think it's part of the reason when we talk about the reliability of the service and the delivery that's happening, a lot of it is because of you folks. You're making it happen, as well as the folks who are on the vessels every day, doing the hard work. It's quite a team, and I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of you. So thank you for what you do and who you are. Item number 11 is reserved for public comments for non-agenda items. So we had one comment during the public comment period on the hearing where the individual made a comment not related to what was on the agenda. So if that individual or others would like to make a comment on any matter that's of concern, we're happy to hear. Is anyone signed up on item 11?
Nobody has signed up for item number 11.
Anyone wish to, who's within earshot, wish to make a comment on item 11?
Chair Wonderman, if there aren't any public comments, I just have one
And we
thing
want to
add.
adjourn as recommended, but go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's relevant to the last item too, I guess, but this is Arthy's last meeting with us. She is moving on to the San Mateo County Transit District.
Who approved that?
If not me. And we just talked about retention, and we've been doing a great job with retention until now, so I hope this isn't a sign of things to come. But Arthi has just done tremendous work for us here at the agency. You saw some of it on display here with the Green Marine program, managing that, assessing our FAIR program, and coming up with some pretty brilliant ways to deal with that. She's just been a star here at the agency, and we're just very proud of the work that she's done. Also, congratulations to her for finding a great opportunity at San Mateo County Transit District, a little closer to home for her as well. So if you don't mind us giving her just a round of applause for her work here.
Yeah, Artie, thanks very much. It's a pleasure having had you aboard here. And, I said earlier that, you did a very, very good presentation today. And I noticed that I was going to comment and I didn't, that Seamus really put you to work today. And now I wish I'd said it, but I eventually said it. So thank you very much. And in honor, we'll adjourn the meeting in honor of Rod Dierdon, who is, an amazing leader and contributor to transit in this region. Very, very special, dedicated servant. Thank you. And the meeting's adjourned.